Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Back. Welcome to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham. This is, of course, talkTV. It's Friday night, and there's an awful lot of plankery to discuss. There could be politicians in there, there could be kings and queens, there could be princes, dukes, who knows who from the royal family. There might be the odd organisation as well, because it has been one heck of a week. We just had the new budget, which wasn't a budget as well. Jeremy Hunt actually didn't do that badly. So we're not going to make him a plank this week, incredibly, but there's always next week when it all falls apart and the markets go crazy. Coming up, though, we have got a great lineup of guests. Kevin O'Sullivan is back, the busiest man on talkTV. Molly Kingsley is also back from Us For Them. No campaigning for you today, we'll just be doing the plankery. Daisy McAndrew joins us for the first time in our new lovely studio. And Russell Quirk, fresh from the budgetary matters at hand. We may talk about those a little bit later on. But you know what? A woman whose name hasn't come out for a while is vying for this. It's going to be your first one. But have a look at this, because that is what they're up against. That's what they're going to win. So yours, Kevin, is the first. Who is it?
Jeremy Hunt. No, it's not.
Be careful how you say that.
So the C is silent.
He's certainly up there, but my first choice is the current Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, who I had high hopes for.
Yes.
And I like the colour of her jib, I like what she says, but then again, I used to like what Priti Patel said, but she never actually did anything.
Exactly.
And Suella Braverman shows dangerous signs of going in the same direction. And the particular thing that has got my goat now is the deal that she did with the French to patrol their own beaches.
Yes.
And said, here's £62 million to help you govern your own country. Why can't they patrol their own beaches and use their own money? So we have to give them the 62 million quid, and we know they won't do anything. And the reason we know that is because last year, Priti Patel gave them 55 million.
What did they do with that?
Nothing. Nothing. What they do when we give them these huge amounts of money is they stage a photo call.
Yeah.
The cops go on the beach, they find a dinghy, and they stick a knife in it and go, look, we're stopping the boats. Well, they don't stop the boats. We know that last weekend, something like 2,000 of them came over, 972 on Saturday alone. So this money, we might as well pour it down a hole and set fire to it. It's a waste of time. So what I'm saying is...
Macron is laughing at us, and the whole of the French are. But you know how to remedy this? I mean, all this running around, pretending that we're going to start stabbing dinghies, or we're going to try and get to the gangmasters at the source and so on. You know, what we need to do is take down that page on the website that the government actually have published as we speak now that advertises what you get if you come over here as a potential asylum seeker. It says everybody in that family gets £40 a week each. You get maternity money if you're pregnant. You get free education and free healthcare. That is what's advertised as of now on the government website. So no wonder they're all coming over in droves and bypassing France and Germany.
Well, I mean,
we're advertising for
the good thing about this new government that we've got is that they're being a bit more honest than the last one, because they've actually said it won't work up front. They've just gone, you know...
Here's the money anyway.
They've gone, no, they've said it's not going to make any difference for quite a long time.
So Suella Braverman, one day, she essentially stands there and says, I've done this triumphant deal with the French, neglecting to tell us that they did the same triumphant deal a year before. We paid them a load of money to not do what they didn't do the last time. And then the next day, she writes an article in the Daily Mail saying, well, you know, this isn't a problem that can be solved overnight. There's no silver bullet. Yeah, there is. Detain them when they turn up. Send them to jail. On suspicion of breaking our laws, trying to break into our country, then the business model of the people smugglers would be smashed. There is a silver bullet, but Suella Braverman, like her predecessors, does not have the will to solve the
Kevin,
migrant crisis.
I have to ask you a question. So
Here we come, hippy-dippy.
Does this mean that you now want Suella Braverman to leave office as Home Secretary or stay? Because you might remember that we have a money bet on Suella Braverman.
This is good.
We have money on whether or not she's going to survive. And this was in the days when Kevin was her #1 fan, her fanboy, and he was desperate for Suella Braverman to stay in
This was when Labour were out to get her, right?
This was just about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. Yeah.
And I said that I didn't think she was going to be staying there in the long term, and so we've got £5 on it. So does that mean...
So far, my money's looking good, but I have gone off Suella Braverman, I agree.
Well, she's just become the same Home Secretary that every other Home Secretary has become. Where obviously there's somebody in the Home Office just said, by the way, just so you know, we can't do anything about this.
Yeah.
All
so
talk and
there's no
headlines,
point in
all talk and
pretending.
headlines. But she actually went all the way to France to cement this deal, didn't she?
Yeah.
Went all the way there with the cheque, almost like, one of those
She
kind
also,
of
did she
game
not
show
also
things.
take a helicopter down to Manston to have a look at it?
Yeah. From the air.
From the air?
Yeah, 'cause that's important.
Why do you have to look at it from the air?
So that you can look macho
Yeah.
and
I
tough
thought so,
in
yeah.
a chopper.
Yeah.
Did she abseil into it then, do you think, from the helicopter?
Yeah, sort of James Bond style. Yeah, it is pathetic, isn't it? But it's a good plank, though, to begin with. Daisy, who's your first one?
My plank is Boy George.
Yes.
Now,
Yay.
I've never really liked him, so I've got to admit that I've come with some bias towards Boy George.
you really want
That's
to
all right
hurt
on
him?
this show.
I do really want to hurt him, not as much as he really wanted to hurt this poor chap, who he did. He got sentenced. And I think we all sort of forgot this. We got collective amnesia about the fact that he was convicted and sent to prison for a really serious crime.
Yeah.
Fast forward 12 years, or however long it's been, and he's being lauded as a national treasure on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And which really stuck in my throat. I thought he shouldn't have been given this platform because, yes, he might have done his time, but I don't believe he's rehabilitated because I don't believe he's ever really apologised. He said, I had a psychotic episode because I was high on drugs.
He was on drugs. Because he also, did he not sell off all his furniture as well? Because he had that house in Hampstead, didn't he? And he just it was completely empty because he just got rid of everything because he used it all to buy drugs.
So then on last night's episode of I'm a Celeb, Boy George got really angry with Scarlett, one of his campmates, for having the temerity to bring up this matter of public record.
Oh, really?
That he had been... And she said, what was all this about you handcuffing somebody to a radiator? And his response was to say that it was really inappropriate that she had done this, like it was Scarlett's
so
fault.
she was in the wrong.
So she was in the wrong. And then to say that her facts weren't right. If you actually look at what he said... Yes, he didn't tie this man up, handcuff this man to a radiator. He handcuffed him to a fitting on the wall. Yeah. So, I mean...
But still beat that person with a chain.
And beat him, exactly, and
what sort of
accused him...
fitting on the wall do you think that would be?
Arrogant of moral virtue, isn't it, Boy George?
And by the way, he also said on I'm a Celeb, this tabloid exaggeration. It wasn't tabloid exaggeration. He got a 15-month jail sentence in a court of law. That is nothing to do with the newspapers, George. He is in complete denial.
Hasn't somebody tracked down the guy he chained up as well, who's not very happy about it?
Yes, he's not happy at all about the fact that Boy George is on there. And Boy George has been so bitchy and carpy about everybody else in there, particularly Matt Hancock. And I think, well, actually, yes, Matt Hancock made some really serious mistakes, but he did most of them. He was trying to do his job.
He didn't chain anybody up.
And he didn't.
As far as we know. I don't know about Gina, but that's that sort of thing.
It's a different show altogether.
I do think there's a really serious point here, actually, about using the platform to rehabilitate yourself when actually, there's a question mark about whether you should be able to do that. And I would say the same does apply. We had this conversation, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago, but the same does apply to Matt Hancock, because actually in many of the public's eyes, he has made really serious mistakes that have led directly to loss of life. So actually, query whether people who have criminal record, people who are very controversial, should use that platform.
And I know this sounds sexist, but I do believe those who say if Boy George's victim had been a woman, I don't think he would have been allowed onto this prime-time TV show. I just don't. I think because it was a man, people haven't taken it as seriously. And I think that's...
And don't forget, Boy George was leading the charge in terms of them all saying Matt Hancock shouldn't be here for moral reasons. ITV have got some questions to answer here because Matt Hancock is getting £400,000. Boy George, whose crimes are much worse than Matt Hancock's, is getting £500,000. So ITV are the villains.
And also, it did make me laugh. I don't know if you saw, but their treat one day this week was they got some jelly babies or similar, and they had 2 each. Of course, they're not vegan.
No.
Did he ate them.
Did he?
Was Boy George vegan?
But that would make
I didn't know that.
Oh, yes,
make him a hypocrite, surely not.
Yeah, exactly. And to be frank, I'm afraid, and apologies to any Buddhists watching, but the chanting really gets on my tits. It's really annoying.
By the way,
also, Matt Hancock actually has said that he's in there to be forgiven.
But did we believe him when he said that? I'm here with tears in his eyes. He said, I'm here for forgiveness.
Well, I believe he wants forgiveness because all people like that want you to forget what they've done and just take them back and, it's sort of Boris Johnson-esque, isn't it?
And what does Boy George get out of the chanting? Every morning, and then he comes back to the camp in a furious mood.
Exactly.
I thought it was supposed to bring you
How does that go again?
Yeah.
How does that Buddhism thing go again?
Yesterday.
See, I missed all this.
The guy is an absolute idiot.
He's so annoying. I couldn't agree more.
Goodness me. Who knew that Boy George was such a hate figure? We did a hater of the week there. Russell, your next one, and it's a police officer, I think.
It is. It's a very senior police officer, actually. So he is...
I think I've had some interactions with this guy.
Well, this guy, have
because
you?
whenever
Well,
I complain about what the police are doing in London, the police have started answering my tweets, which
Well,
is
I hope
quite bizarre.
I hope not too close, Mike, because what I'm going to talk about. So
Go
he
on,
is
then.
an assistant commissioner in the Metropolitan Police,
Yes.
ex-chief constable in the
From
Wales
Wales, I think, isn't he?
Constabulary.
Yeah.
Very, very senior.
Yeah.
And let's just say that Mr. Dukes is very, very concerned, I think, about women of a certain age.
Is he?
And their menopausal experience. So what he's done to compensate, to make
great.
himself feel akin with women of a certain age that may be going through the change, he has decided to walk around at work strapped into a menopausal vest. Did you know there was such a thing? Apparently.
I didn't know that.
A menopausal vest, which actually, at random intervals, causes hot flushes. And his excuse for doing this is so that he can feel akin with female colleagues, and so that he can understand if women that are menopausal at work are being affected by that particular
Where would you get
issue.
one of these menopausal vests?
I don't know if he made it or if it's
No,
might be
they're
available on Amazon.
available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where would you buy?
Try one
Where would
out.
you buy one? Though?
Yeah, so I don't know what he's going to do next. Whether he's going to kind
Menopause
of
are us.
Menopause and Spencers.
maybe next he's going to kind of strap
It's
on
the
fake
hot
breasts or
item for
something.
Christmas. Everyone wants
Very
one.
good.
So next maybe he's going to strap on fake breasts just to see how that.
What, like
feels.
Gaza?
Yeah, or maybe kind of punch himself in the stomach for a week every month to kind
Yeah.
of feel ready
He
to
said-
Didn't
have
they have?
periods.
Didn't you guys on the talk have the period pains thing?
We
that you
did,
could-
we
that you
did,
could-
and-
you could
and the
actually
men-
simulate
Really?
period pain. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
the men
Collins
tried it. They were all
Yeah.
squealing
course
and
they would
screaming
be.
like babies.
Yeah.
So I think it's utterly plankish and ridiculous. I don't know what the women on the panel think, but I mean, it is ludicrous, isn't it, that he should kind of try and.
Are you suggesting they're
fake
both menopausal
sincerity.
women?
No, about the principle. No,
said-
he
he said-
definitely
he
wasn't
said
doing
he's
that.
not-
Dangerous ground.
He said he's not trying to mansplain the menopause
Oh, really?
to women or anything like this. But basically, what do we all think about this? Just get the menopause vest off and go and arrest some criminals.
Yeah.
Solve
Yeah.
some damn crimes. Be a copper. It's ridiculous.
It's an anti-stab vest you need in London, not one of those. isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
I think it's indicative of civil servants that are obsessed with virtue signalling.
Yes.
And, it feels like a publicity. So I think, we would all rather public money was spent
Yeah. How much
on...
does it cost this menopause?
I don't know. We'll have to
Who
ask Matt
paid
Duke.
for it?
I bet
Who
that
paid
comes
for it? Did you
cheap.
pay for
I
it?
hope he didn't put it on expenses,
Yeah.
but no. I mean, look, maybe I suggested the other day actually on social media. Maybe actually he should dress up and simulate a burglar with handcuffs on, because of
Well, a
course,
woman burglar.
that's something that doesn't happen very often, is it? A burglar in handcuffs. So maybe he can simulate that to see what that feels like
Yeah,
instead.
or perhaps we'll simulate actually arresting somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they don't.
Probably
do it
never
really-
done that.
No.
Because coppers don't do that
Right.
anymore.
No, you're not allowed to arrest anybody.
They virtue signal. They do not arrest criminals.
Ridiculous.
I think that virtue signals are a really good expression for this, because, of course, what we know from all these reports that have come out recently is the truth, the dark underbelly of the police is actually not virtuous at all in a lot of cases.
Yes.
The sexism, the racism, all the things that have been exposed recently are horrific. And so you've got that side of the police on one hand, and I bet if you asked, well, as they have done, many female police officers about the kind of treatment that they've been doing, we've been reading about it, absolutely horrific. And then you have the totemic, figurehead of one of the forces saying, "Oh, I feel your pain. I have so much empathy for you," and you think.
Well, it tells you what's
it's
gone
not-
wrong, doesn't it?
it's
It
not
tells you that
true.
the leadership has got absolutely no influence whatsoever over the sort of rank and file,
Yeah.
who are behaving as if it's the Sweeney in 1975.
Yeah, exactly. So in one way they've moved
Pull your
too
trousers
far.
up, you're all nicked and all that,
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot worse than
Well, and a lot worse than that, yeah. But I just find it very odd because all of the kind of, main sort of public sector, businesses now seem to be run by these maniacs, who just would rather, show you what they... Because, I mean, even if he was doing it, surely he doesn't need to tell everybody he's doing it,
It's wokery. It's just it's wokery gone mad.
I mean, yes and no. Certainly 10, 15 years ago, the menopause was still a taboo subject within the workplace.
Yeah.
No woman, would go into work and say, "Oh, I've got problems with menopause. I've got brain fog. I've got hot flushes." Because you'd think, well, off you go,
Well, you
dearie.
say, "Why don't you take the vest off?"
Let's put you out to pasture because you're past it. So,
Check, don't come back.
so it's good that those days seem to be
Yeah,
behind
but
us.
what I really love, though, is whenever you listen to people who go on which whichever show, TV or radio or otherwise, and say, you know, it's such a taboo subject. You know, nobody ever talks about it. It's all anybody talks about.
No, I'm saying nobody.
No, I know. I'm not accusing you of this,
yeah.
but there are people who even now
yeah.
still say nobody talks about the menopause. It's literally all you ever hear. You know, Radio 4 do barely nothing else. You know. Might as well call it radio
the
menopause.
male menopause, of course.
There is the male
Which
menopause.
we all ought to worry about.
Is there a vest for that?
Really? What are the symptoms of that, Kev?
What,
I've
yeah,
not heard of
exactly,
this.
Kev. Tell us all about it.
Yeah.
You get grumpy and
You get miserable.
sweaty.
You keep moaning about things. I don't know what's going to happen to me.
You go to national radio and TV and start slagging everybody off.
Yeah. You lose your train of thought.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, brain fog is... I mean, he's had that for years.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true, for technical reasons.
the technical reasons. Now, before we move on, I'm going to... Because we did mention the budget straight up at the top, we've literally just come out of the budget scenario. There's more money for pensioners, which is good. And this is why I'm just telling you why we're not making Jeremy Hunt a plank, because there will be perhaps another former Tory cabinet minister who comes onto that list later. But, you know, I thought Jeremy Hunt actually did all right.
I think it was a terrible budget. I thought it was a Labour budget by
Well, it is a Labour budget.
by a Conservative government.
It is a Labour budget.
We didn't really vote for it. It certainly wasn't part of this
I
2019
think they might as well just
manifesto.
join forces now and actually have just one party.
But for those that work really hard and earn, you know, what I would not say is a high amount of money, but is kind of middle money. So those now that earn over £125,000 are now caught by the 45p tax rate, the very tax rate, of course, that Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss were going to delete altogether.
Yes.
Capital gains tax has been attacked. Inheritance tax has been frozen. So everybody over £325,000 in terms of what they leave now pays tax or continues to. So actually, for what I would say, the hard-working Conservative types, we've all been stung. But what he did manage to do, Jeremy Hunt, of course, was to increase benefits at the rate of inflation as it stands today, over 10% for doing nothing, for sitting on your bum at home on benefits.
Although a lot of people on
earning
benefits say that it's because they're working and they don't make enough money, so it's actually subsidising people who don't
It
make
seems
enough
to
money.
be a dichotomy, I think, doesn't it? That the hard-working have been stung and those that are on benefits have benefited from this budget.
Was ever thus.
See, the only thing I would say on that is he has, for once, done something good on schools, which is the only time, I think, in the last 3 years I've ever said that about this government. So they have increased funding for schools, which was desperately needed, and restored it to 2010 levels. So
And he
small
shoveled,
blessing.
he shoveled another £6 billion into the black hole that is the NHS.
They have,
Unfortunately, the teachers are will go on
They're all going to go on
so,
strike.
They're going to strike anyway. Yeah, it will be interesting to see actually
the
what
schools will
reason
be
they
rubbish
use.
anyway.
For
Well,
that
they are
now.
rubbish anyway.
But
I mean,
extra
that's
money
the
will just
point.
go on teacher pay then.
Well,
But we haven't got teachers down here anywhere, because coming up next we'll be nominating the most powerful man in the world, it says here. Don't know who that could be. Back after this. See? That's easy, really, when you try. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham. This is, of course, Talk TV. We've already got underway, so we're going to go straight to the next plank. And it is, of course, Molly Kingsley's turn. So, Molly, who have you got for us?
I've got Gavin Williamson.
A voice we haven't heard from for a while, really.
No, we haven't. I'm afraid I refuse to call him sir. So this relates to the story that hit the front pages earlier this week, which was that a staggering 2 million out of 9 million English school kids are now regularly missing school. That's 1 in 5, more than 1 in 5 children in the country. And of course, this goes back to what happened in 2020 and 2021 and is a subject very close to my heart. And really, it can be pinned squarely on the shoulders of Gavin Williamson because, of course, he was Secretary of State for Education at the time and was responsible, admittedly with a lot of union pressure, but he was responsible for closing schools not once but twice. So, and I think just a few things to say on this is, you know, we set up Us for Them in May 2020 really out of a concern that school closures would be disastrous for kids, and it gives us no joy to see that in many ways that was right. And I think a few things have been overlooked in the kind of debate about school closures. And one is that one of our worries was always that by closing schools for such a long period, so England's schools were closed for longer than any other country in Europe apart from Italy. And actually by closing schools for such a long period, you kind of reverse years of work done by educators and parents to teach children that schooling is essential. And what we have done, it now transpires, is we've really degraded the currency of education. So, you know, if you actually
so
think...
these kids that are not going to school, are they just not going for any particular
They're
reason?
not permanently off the register. So of that 2 million, we know that about 100,000 are permanently off the register. That is a significant increase from pre-pandemic. This figure of 2 million is up, I think I read in this report, 82% from pre-pandemic. So this is kids who are regularly off school. So it's not just like being ill.
Is it not just more homeschooling?
No, that is wrapped into it as well, but no, by far the biggest chunk is kids who are just
being
playing
absent.
truant. It's just being absent.
Yeah.
And what makes this really, really sad is obviously for these children, it is, you know, a disaster, but actually it's looking at the knock-on effect down the line. So these kids are 3 times more likely not to end up in higher education or employment. They're far more likely, because we know that missing school is correlated with health outcomes, so they're far more likely to be a burden on the NHS, and they're far more likely to be a burden on the criminal justice service. So you just think, what does this look like for our society in 5, 10, 30 years from now? And it is staggering.
And presumably it's because they just figured, well, I didn't go for so long, it doesn't really matter. So why should
Well,
I
I think
bother?
we've taught them school isn't important. We sent out that message, don't go to school, school's not
And
important.
has Gavin Williamson kind of, as we talked about Matt Hancock earlier, in terms of, you know, a little bit of repenting in terms of some of the mistakes he made, a little bit, has Gavin Williamson stood up and said anything about his tenure as Education Secretary?
No, I mean,
Has
he received a
apologised?
knighthood. He received a knighthood.
Has he got a platform anymore? I suppose?
No.
No, I mean, Nadeem Zahawi came as close as anyone by saying that school closure is a mistake. There has been no apology.
I was going to say, Molly, but why did we treat kids like that during the lockdown? I mean, my abiding image of the lockdown in the early days, I live quite near sort of Hampstead Heath, and there were just thousands of kids every day just sitting around in groups, you know, teenage drinking and, you know, doing those weird
Vaping or
capsule things,
the
you know,
balloon,
with
Not
balloons.
nos.
Oh, doing those,
Just day in, day out. But, you know, OK, arguably at the beginning, you know, we did need to lock down schools. But why did we do it for so long? Why did we treat the children like that?
Because they don't have a voice, I think, do they? And there was this very uncomfortable
A lot
narrative.
of the teachers, though, also were responsible
The
for that.
teachers were, yeah.
Because they were all like,
yeah.
oh, we can't go back, it's too dangerous.
Well,
I mean, I was getting-
the NEU ran a campaign saying close the schools. So you've got
Yeah.
the biggest teaching union in the land
Yeah.
baying for school closures.
Right.
Yeah, they were paranoid about being culpable, weren't they?
Yes.
Well, they also were paranoid about getting COVID. They said, oh, if you open schools, everyone will get COVID. Well, everybody did get it. Loads of the kids got it, and it didn't make any difference.
Well, hardly any
And
kids
they were
got
fine.
it, proportionally, and those that didn't die. And
Yeah.
if you didn't get it as a kid, you couldn't pass it on. So it was a
But my kids'
pointless
school, right,
waste of
somebody
time.
would get it, and they would send home sort of 3 people that sat somewhere near them, but not the other 3 people that sat over there. It was all very weird.
You know, they'd walk
there was
past
no
in the
rhyme or
corridors
reason
and
to
stuff.
it, you know.
Yeah.
But we seriously let down a generation, didn't we?
We seriously let down a generation. I mean, there's lots of reasons, and it goes, you know, children are missing from politics, and the parent voice is missing largely from Westminster, and there's no one advocating for that group. And I think, as on top of that, we had this very uncomfortable narrative that children were disease vectors.
Yeah.
You know, they were vermin. Stay away from
And they
them.
might kill their grandparents.
They were don't
and all
kill
that.
Granny, and we told them they might
It was
kill Granny.
unbelievable. Yeah. And then, of course, then they did the thing where they went, oh, don't worry about the exams, because whatever you do, we'll just make up a grade for you.
Yeah.
That's not
It's a
good.
kind of bizarre way to treat them.
And Molly, I wanted to ask you, of those 2 million, is there any research on how many of them might have either special educational needs or any other issues? Because I know when I've done stories in the past, particularly about truant children, the number of truant children who end up being diagnosed with, and we'll come back to Matt Hancock here, but with dyslexia or some other kind of, you know, special educational need. So it's a sort of chicken and egg, because they're not very good at school, because quite often they've got these undiagnosed issues. They then truant because school isn't a happy place for them, and then they end up in the criminal justice system, as you were saying. And the statistics of kids, you know, in what our generation would have called Borstal, you know, youth offenders, and then prison, with who can't read or write, are absolutely huge.
And I think this is exactly right. And you have this confluence of children with different needs. And I think one of the other things, actually, this government have done terribly is look after children with special needs. So there's been this SEND white paper. It was a green paper, then it was a white paper. And this has been in the offing for years, I mean, literally years, and nothing happens with it. And actually, one of the things that we've been trying to do is say to the new education minister, like what is going on with this? It's been forgotten. Because it's, again, we go back to the point, it's disastrous for individual children, but actually as a society, we're just storing up costs. And it's, this money that we keep pouring into the NHS. And actually, the problem is we don't intervene at the time it would make a difference.
We're undereducated kids. I mean, look at the social media. Is a swirling mass of semi-literacy, isn't it? And these are fully grown people who've been through our educational system.
Yeah,
they don't know how to spell anything. They don't know how to
kids were told years ago, in English lessons, don't worry about not being able to spell. In maths,
you don't
use a calculator.
No, you don't need to spell. You don't need to add up.
No grammar.
You don't need to do anything.
1 in 4
but listen,
primary school children.
I'm bored of this now. Can I stop this? I'm bored of this now. That's enough. This is supposed to be.
I want to hear what
Well, if you want to do
saying.
a story about education,
1 in 4 primary school children
leave primary school without being able to read.
Okay, hang on. I've lost control.
I've lost control.
I've lost control.
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do now. Meghan Markle is my first nomination, which is a bit more mainstream, I have to say. Meghan Markle is in for several reasons today. One, she and Harry have decided that having upset the entire world, they're going to create a fake world called the metaverse, and they're going to be wandering about inside this metaverse with fake, emojis. They're going to have their own avatars. We had a look at them last night. They look ridiculous, right? But so I don't understand why they haven't had enough of just influencing all the people that exist in the real world, that they now have to enter another world. But it's not just that. She's also said in an interview or in one of her podcasts that basically she was told by a very influential woman, and the hint is that it's either Michelle Obama or Oprah Winfrey, or very possibly... what was the name of Serena? Could be Serena Williams, or it could be Beyonce, but some very influential woman begged her that when she got married to Harry, that she didn't give up her social activism. And everybody's going, are you sure about that?
Yeah.
It's another one of these, and she doesn't want to give away the name just in case that's, embarrassing for the
or
person.
Not true.
Or who maybe he didn't ever say it. But finally, the other one this week as well is she's done a podcast on social media, which is out there as part of her, archetypes or whatever it's called. Alison Yarrow, who's from New York, is a woman I don't know. But she turns out that she appears on this podcast, but she didn't actually talk to Meghan. She was actually interviewed by the producer of the podcast because there's a social media post in which this woman, Alison, thanks the producer and says, "You were a great interviewer."
Wow.
And so it looks
Fake
as though
Meghan's overdubbed.
Yeah, they've fake news. So they've cut and pasted.
So Meghan comes in afterwards and does the overlay.
I mean, it's true to say that in some of the other ones you can see her sitting with people, so it's not done all the time.
Yeah, and some of them you can hear the interaction.
But obviously there are some where there's only the person that she's talking to and not her, or at least they're filming it split. So, I mean, it's a bit dishonest,
I guess,
isn't it?
given how fake Meghan clearly is, having a fake world full of avatars is pretty appropriate. Yeah,
I suppose so. I mean, maybe that's where they belong.
Yeah.
Maybe they should just operate inside the metaverse.
Fake world. It kind of fits.
I still think she doesn't know what archetypes means.
She probably doesn't.
She really doesn't.
Well, she thinks it's a play on Archie, doesn't she?
It is. There was Archwell.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then Archie. Archetypes.
Yeah, stereotypes. That's what it
Marble
means.
Archie. I mean, it is ridiculous.
I'm going to talk to a lot of stereotypes. That's basically what it is.
Is he coming here for Christmas or not?
No.
He's not, is he?
No,
But he is
there
coming
was
here to
talking
publish his book. Is he
I
not
think he
coming
might
to
come in
publish his book?
January to publicise his book.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
By that time, that would be $2.99 in the bin at the back of WH Smith's, wouldn't it?
They'll be giving us money to take it away.
It was already 50% down the day after the January the 10th was announced, and the next day it was already 50% off. But the metaverse, so whenever you need your fix of Meghan and Harry, you can go into the metaverse.
Does anyone ever need a fix of Meghan and Harry?
These two, that's because it's all they like to talk about.
It's
They
not
obviously need a
No,
fix.
you have to remember that we do an awful lot of talking, and so if you were to add up all the amount of talking we do about Meghan and Harry, it's hardly anything at all compared to what we talk about all the time. We talk about loads of other things.
I think you're going to be addicted to their metaverse universe.
Well, I can't really understand metaverses, if that's what the plural of
Metaverse-I.
Metaverse-I. Maybe I should get my own metaverse.
Well, I don't
and
think
just wander
Meta's
about in
customers
it.
understand
I mean,
it. I
what are
mean,
you
that
supposed to
share
do?
price has taken an absolute hit, hasn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, this is a Mark Zuckerberg thing, isn't it? And largely it's seen as having been a massive failure. It was another one of his
Which is
fantasy
good,
projects.
because it sounds absolutely dystopian
Well,
and
isn't the whole
horrific.
Elon Musk and Twitter thing a proof that basically so much of all of these tech companies It's just BS. There's
just
nothing
bluff and
there.
bluster.
Did you see-
kind of pull open the door and there's nothing in there.
So
What do they do?
James Hunt today announced this exciting plan.
James
James Hunt,
James
the
Hunt.
actor.
He's been dead 20 years.
He's a racing driver.
I've done
was
that
a race
before.
driver,
Yeah, he was
not
a racing
actor.
driver, yeah.
That is how to get his name wrong. Jeremy Hunt.
You get his first name wrong.
Jeremy Hunt today announced that Britain will a plan for Britain to become the next Silicon Valley. Who wants to be the next Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
Silicon Valley's crap.
Yeah, you've seen the house prices in Silicon Valley. So
Well,
it's-
everyone's leaving. Everyone's leaving Silicon
it's
Valley.
horrible.
Okay.
Crashing
Oh,
down.
no, well,
Yeah.
they've been that high and now they're crashing it.
It's horrible.
We've already got loads of we've got Silicon Glen, we've got
Yeah.
Silicon Gorge,
Motor Racing
we've got
Valley.
Silicon Roundabout.
Silicon Avenue.
Silicon
Roundabout.
Breasts.
Yeah. Silicon
Silicon
Breasts. Talk for yourself, Mike.
Yeah, we've got enough silicon.
Yeah, that's enough silicon. Is your one next, Kev?
OK, I would like to nominate
James Hunt.
the most... Not James Hunt. Or Jeremy Hunt. I'd
Can't
like
keep
to
saying
nominate...
it, you're going to get it wrong.
I'd like to nominate the most powerful man in the world, Joe Biden, because there he is. There are serious problems. I don't mean to be cruel,
Right.
but there are really serious, increasingly worrying concerns about this guy's cognitive abilities. He is the President of the United States of America. Take a look at this.
It'll help make the transition to a low-carbon future more affordable for everyone. Accelerate decarbonation beyond our borders. In fact, the International Energy Agency recently concluded that our significant climate investment will, quote, help turbocharge turbocharge the emerging global clean energy economy.
Dear God.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the President of the United States of America.
Quote.
So you can't stop laughing at it, but it is very, very worrying. At the G7 just now, he again, or was it the G20, the one in Bali?
G20,
he was reading the order. He literally stopped in the middle of the speech going, oh, okay.
But he also, just a few days
I
ago,
can't
mixed
read
up
that.
Cambodia and Colombia.
He did. It's easy to do.
He's getting continents wrong. Remember what he called Rishi Sunak? What did he call
Rashid
him?
Sunak.
Yeah. The guy is falling apart.
No, Sunak, sorry.
He's
But he's
falling
also
apart.
said he's going to run again.
He's falling apart.
But he's going to
the
decide
mental
in January.
Yeah.
The only problem is he can't decide when January is.
Yeah.
Well, so he
as
might
soon
have
as it
forgotten
comes,
about
he's
it.
definitely
But I
going to
mean,
decide.
honestly, if you look at him making a speech 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, he wasn't a bad speaker. He is declining very, very
But
fast.
Kev, the worrying thing is this isn't just him making speeches. He's actually trying to read this stuff.
I know.
So it's not like he's trying to get it in his brain. He's actually got it
No, I
in
mean,
front of him
we've
and
been
he's still
doing this
messing it
thing.
up.
I mean, we didn't actually do it today because we've been doing this, the Daily Biden. And I thought, is it going to be easy enough to find a clip every single day? It's the easiest thing in the world because there's so many of his
choice.
clips. Because every time he speaks, he gets it wrong. He screws it up.
Look at him! Look at him trying to get off an aeroplane or onto an aeroplane. He fell down 3 times.
Well, no, trying to get off
fell
the
off the
stage.
bicycle.
Recently, he couldn't even get off the stage.
He fell off a bicycle in humiliating circumstances. Now, the most worrying thing is that in the midterms just now, the Democrats, and indeed by extension Joe Biden, did much better than expected. And actually the Democrats are privately fuming about this because it means he might have to be their next nominee. He might have to be their candidate at the next presidential election. And that is the last thing in the world they want because, for God's sake, what is this guy going to be
that means
like
Biden for another
in
6
4
years.
years, 4, 5, 6
yeah,
years?
There's
except
an
I don't think he
interesting
would win that.
contrast, isn't there, with what just happened in the UK? Because although it's been an absolute mess, our politics, we did at least, the system got rid of a very unpopular Prime Minister very quickly. Whereas actually, what's the option? How does that happen in the States?
In the
Because he's
States,
obviously unfit for
the
office.
alternative is Kamala Harris.
There isn't. I don't think. I think you have to go back a long way to find somebody who was taken out of office effectively because they weren't cognitive enough to do it. But I mean, the protocol would be that the Vice President would have to take over. As indeed happened.
Well, I think it has to be a vote of the House of Representatives.
When Nixon left office.
But don't forget the Republicans
given
have
to
just
Ford.
taken the House of Representatives. So if the system is whereby those two houses have to vote, I think isn't it the 25th Amendment? I mean, it could happen.
Yeah, but they can't
happen.
get rid of the President and the Vice President, is what I'm saying.
no,
They
she
would then
moves
be
up.
stuck with Kamala Harris, who technically speaking might be worse.
But I mean, the American
True.
system for head of state is different when it comes to their medical grounds. They have to, as we all remember with with Trump. They have to subject themselves to regular medicals, and there are all those stories at the time about whether they could get rid of Trump on medical grounds, remember? But it would be the same with Biden, that he would have to subject himself to medicals, and if he wasn't cognizant...
You know about that, though. He does have to... They do have to take cognitive tests.
Yeah.
He refuses to publish the results of his, and we know why. So there is a serious prospect that he will stand at the next election. And if he goes up against Trump, there's a chance he could win, and we're stuck with this guy for more.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
It is.
He has to go.
Yeah. He really does. And I'm pleased you mentioned Donald Trump, because I was going to squeeze him in at the end there, because nobody's put him up as a plank this week, which is encouraging.
I have.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. Coming up next, we'll be asking whether gingerbread men are in fact offensive. I don't think so. Yeah, it doesn't look real. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham, and we are halfway through the show, I think, or possibly even more than that. But they don't tell me in the production office because they don't like me to know anything. Coming up, though, we've got some more planks for you, and we'll decide who the winner will be, of course, right at the end. And slightly change the rules on the game for those of you who've done it before, because it used to be that there was a sort of democratic voting system. Now I decide on my own.
It's a dictatorship.
It's now dictatorship,
Quite
I'm
right.
afraid. Speaking of which, who's your next nominee?
Well, it is a former dictator.
Former dictator.
President Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'm nominating him as my plank this week. Obviously, he made his speech at Mar-a-Lago in front of his adoring crowds,
Yes.
with, as you mentioned, all the chandeliers and all the rest of it. And actually, it was seeing Melania next to him that made him look even more of a plank to me. Because do you remember all those stories about how, Melania was being held practically hostage by her
And
husband?
wasn't she going to leave him?
That she was going to leave him. And actually, I was watching them this week thinking she's had the last laugh, I think. I think it's now clear that he needs her more than she ever needed him. And that if he's got any chance of going back to the White House, she needed him.
Yeah.
And, they've renegotiated their prenup.
Oh, have they?
Apparently, yeah. So, and now that Barron...
So is she getting more or less?
She's getting more for sticking around. Yeah, and every time he's been in trouble or he's sort of humiliated her, she's disappeared for a bit, which seems to be her MO.
Right.
She just disappears and he goes nuts and they go, come back,
Didn't he blame her? Didn't he blame her for losing some of the election results on midterm day?
Yeah.
For some reason, for not being around or something.
Yeah, and then she said, the sort of mute stealing. I mean, he's got verbal diarrhea,
Yeah.
just can't stop talking, and she's got sort of verbal constipation,
Yes.
hasn't she? She says nothing, but it's all in the steely eyes.
Yeah.
And I think.
But I
she's
think
right,
women
and
like
he's a
that,
plank.
though, are very smart women, clearly, because, she gets whatever she wants out of it, no doubt, and no doubt probably has him, at a beck and call, and may occasionally reward him with something or other, who knows what. But, she's obviously in charge of him rather than the other way around.
I really think so. And
I think that's always the case, though.
She was once asked in an interview, but in a panel, do you think that would you be with Donald Trump if he wasn't massively wealthy? And she said, would he be with me if I wasn't beautiful?
Yeah.
And I think,
Nice.
fair
Good
enough.
answer.
Good answer.
She's got the innate sense of style that he so palpably does not have.
Right.
He is a classic American terrible dresser.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic dresser. She
the-
looks
and
great.
The
tough
funniest
as old
social
boots.
media meme, of course,
Yeah.
is, blink twice, Melania,
Yeah.
if you want help.
But also, the great thing is that because of the way that people treat him, either they adore him or they absolutely detest him. She kind of fits into that narrative either way, whichever way you want to look at it.
I mean, she was, when they left office, she was the least popular First Lady that there'd ever been. But the other thing that happened this week is Ivanka, his daughter, has publicly dumped him, publicly dumped her father, Donald Trump. And that is another massive win for Melania, because they always were at sort of battles. Like, Ivanka wanted the First Lady's office in the White House to be called the First Family's office. And Melania said, over my dead body, and she won.
And a lot of Republican
now,
donors have dumped him as well. And when you watch his speech as well, he went from kind of auto cue and it being very scripted. As soon as he went off and started rambling about making America very great again,
Glorious.
the rubbish, the glorious and great again, even Fox News kind of cut away, didn't they?
I'm still glad he's back, though, because it's going to be very
he's great for
because
guys
we've lost Boris Johnson from the narrative, so we might as well
It's a
get
great
Trump
story.
back.
It's a fantastic spectacle. But here's why agree with Daisy why he deserves Plank of the Week is because if the nominee for the Republicans turns out to be Ron DeSantis, and I hope it will be, then he walks straight into the White House.
Yeah.
He's a guaranteed winner.
He beats Biden.
Trump is only a vague possibility that he'll win.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't get the nomination, he might stand as an independent, split the Republican vote, and then we get Joe Biden back. So
you really
Plank
don't
of
want
the
him,
Week
do you?
for Donald.
Well, you really don't want him, but you've now voted for her Plank of the Week as opposed to your own. So, Russell,
So for
your next
Trump,
one.
to this kind of wokeism thing that we are, sleepwalking into, Morrisons supermarket.
Yes.
So bearing in mind, Morrisons supermarket, northern, gritty, down-to-earth supermarket of the people, came out this week and decided that they are now not going to sell gingerbread men anymore.
Right.
They're now only going to sell gingerbread people.
Are they people with cervix?
People. Well, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe looking inside, we might be able to establish that. And look, to me, it's just
people with prostates.
we talked about virtue signalling earlier. This is unnecessary. It's based on probably zero complaints and feedback whatsoever. It's the nutters, either in the marketing department or on the board of that supermarket, now have decided that just in case this offends people in terms of this gender offensiveness, we'd better not call anything either a man or a woman. Frankly, I'm quite miffed now as a kind of middle-aged white man that I'm being completely marginalised by media, by society.
You don't exist anymore.
No, seriously, we're being squeezed out. The fact that there's three of us sitting on, in the studio now is quite remarkable.
Prejudice is like.
It's quite remarkable.
Well, I actually saw an amazing headline today. It was on one of the Mail Online stories. I didn't actually read it, but there was a picture of this person, I shall say, and the quote was, just because I have a vagina, it doesn't make me any less of a man. Sorry.
The other thing I'm really surprised
peak
about...
madness.
What about the other week, that trans woman on Channel 4 on that Friday Night Live show? And there's a sort of headline in the Mail saying, trans woman trots around on stage and shows TV viewers her penis.
Yeah.
And I think, hang on, where are we?
Hang on. I think we're conflating two different issues here. So absolutely agree with that. I mean, that is wokery and it is extreme and it is ridiculous. It's also very dangerous as a safeguarding element to all of this. The gingerbread person, however, I'm going to disagree with you. So we have a society where for centuries we have had the default male, and you guys wouldn't notice that because you are the default male, and I'm sorry that you're feeling marginalised now. But this is how women have been forever. So whilst I don't necessarily agree that you should have gingerbread person, because that just sounds a bit ridiculous. If you're going to have a gingerbread man, you should have had a gingerbread woman. Did Morrisons ever have a gingerbread woman?
I don't know.
They didn't.
But there's no one stopping them having a gingerbread woman. But do we really think that by degendering everything, it advances the cause of women's rights?
I think...
it's ridiculous.
To be honest, when I buy a gingerbread man, I don't really think of it as a man. To be honest,
it is.
It's a biscuit.
And in a way, I'm being facile. But
Did you last buy a gingerbread man?
I'm just surprised.
I can't remember.
I'm just surprised that Morrisons haven't deleted the ginger bit, because of course being ginger apparently
Yeah, but
is a
that's
slur,
not good.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe that we shouldn't have ginger anything.
Just person. Right, anyway, we've got to move on because, Molly, you've got the last one of yours.
Well, so my last one is subscription services. So like many of us, in a bid to cut down on costs earlier this week, I went through my expensive and went through my credit card bills and looked at the things I'm paying for monthly that I could get rid of. Surprise, surprise, you have things that you've been lured into signing up, usually on a, sign up for free and you did it 4 years ago.
You forget,
5 years later or 4 years later, you've paid 20 quid a month for something you've never even used. So anyway, I was like, right, get rid of these. Oh, my God. It took 4 hours later, a whole evening, my blood pressure by the end of the evening was insane. And I'd managed to get rid of about 2 of these 10 services. And I'm not going to go through the other 8, but I did pick out a few that I just couldn't get rid of. So one was LinkedIn, which I did eventually manage to cancel, but it took me about 8 clicks. And in those clicks were, are you sure you want to leave? Are you sure? Why? No, come back. Another one was Prospect magazine, which I don't think I've ever read. Didn't even realise I had a...
Really boring.
Yeah, well...
really boring.
But you can't get out of it. So they make you log on to sign off. You then log into it. They then say you need a customer number. So your customer number is available on any correspondence we've sent you. So I find an email, this goes on. So I've now got an email to them, no cancellation. The worst, though, was Adobe. So Adobe are a big American software company. They made, and I checked this, they make $4.8 billion in profit. They do not have a customer service email
no human.
or phone number. So you just can't cancel. I don't even know what I'm paying for. I'm paying £12 a month to Adobe for something, don't know what it is, doesn't appear on my account.
It's such a great racket, isn't it? I mean, I've got loads of things like this. I've got, like, Apple charges. I've got 99p a month that I've been paying forever. I don't even know what it's for.
Yeah.
It's
and I'm
such
not sure
a
how you
simple
get around
way
it.
of doing business.
Yeah.
Because actually, if you were doing something worthwhile, you wouldn't need to trick people and you would remind people about your service.
Well, again, I think we're all discovering that these tech services that we thought were these kind of brand new businesses that were going to change everything and transform the world and our lives are just actually con jobs in many ways. But we haven't got any more time because we've got to go. Plank of the Week back. We're going to find out who the winner is and I'll tell you who I think it should be. Unbelievable. So, here we are at the final furlong of Plank of the Week. It's been quite a very interesting show, I'd have to say. We've got lots of different things in. My final plank, guys, is Qatar / the World Cup, which gets underway this weekend. Everybody knows it shouldn't happen there. It's the wrong place for it to be. It doesn't stop Gary Neville going out and taking the old Qatari shilling. Doesn't stop Gary Lineker going out. Yesterday, they tried to arrest some people who were from a Danish TV company filming on the street, threatening to break their camera for them because they couldn't film there, apparently. Nobody could explain why. They've also set up these weird fan zones where you're only allowed to have 4 beers before you get packed off somewhere else.
Each one is 12 quid.
And each one is 12 quid, and it's very, very hot. And also, they've got these fake fans that they keep rolling out. And I was watching some of the videos on TikTok the other day where people are being asked, who's your favourite player? And they're all going, Frank Lampard, Wayne Rooney. And it's like so ridiculous, right? But also the first game, Ecuador versus Qatar. Now, that's a right belter of an opener, isn't it? You know,
Can't wait.
It's not exactly 1966.
They're all waiting for
all over again. And then the big match, of course, on Monday, England's sort of first game against Iran. I mean, I just think it's going to be really, really dull. I think nobody's going to be watching it. I don't know why they picked it. Well, I do know why they picked Qatar. But I mean, Russell, are you going to be going out there to see any of the games?
No, definitely not going to be going out there. But there's been no real build-up to it at all, as there has been in previous tournaments, and it's hypocritical to the nth degree. I'm just looking forward to all these again virtue signals that have gone out there and are going to take the money and try and kind of justify it during and after their appearances.
Lest we forget, homosexuality is illegal there. Women who get raped get sent to jail for being unfaithful to their husbands. 6,500 foreign migrant workers died constructing those horrible stadiums. It's way too small in the first place. The World Cup shouldn't be there. I'm a massive football fan. I have never been less interested in the World Cup.
And do you know what's very sinister? They've shipped in a load of Turkish police to police the fans. Yeah. And those of us that do know a little bit about football remember, I'm sure you do, Galatasaray a few years ago, where the Turkish police, the way they treated fans from other countries was absolutely outrageous.
Let's also not forget Beckham took 10 million quid.
Beckham did indeed take 10 million. Now, I'm sort of betwixt and between, though, because I quite like making it Qatar, but I think I made it mine last week, so I shouldn't really do that. So I think I'm going to go with Suella Braverman.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because Suella Braverman, the one who we all thought was going to be the new Home Secretary that was going to change everything, unfortunately has got this to look forward to getting. So well done, Suella Braverman. You are indeed the Plank of the Week because, like all the other Home Secretaries, you ended up doing exactly the same thing, talking a very good game, but in fact not doing anything at all. So thank you very much to Kevin O'Sullivan, to Daisy McAndrew, of course, to Russell Quirk, and to Molly Kingsley. Well done. Suella Braverman, well done. We'll be back same time next week, Friday night, 7 o'clock. Don't miss it. I'm Mike Graham. This has been Plank of the Week.